There is someone in your life right now who takes from you your time, your energy, your patience, your peace. And if you are honest, completely honest, you have known about it for a while. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a dynamic at work. Maybe it's a relationship you have stayed in, long past the point where it stopped making sense. And the story you have been telling yourself is that this happened to you, that they did this, that they chose this. Here is what Epictetus would tell you, and he would not say it gently. No one decided to use you. They discovered they could. There is a difference, and the difference lives entirely with you. This is one of the most studied dynamics in behavioral psychology. It's called operant conditioning. And while the academic language is dry, the reality of it is something every person in this room has experienced firsthand. Behavior that is rewarded continues. Behavior that meets resistance adjusts. When you allow someone to cross a line, even once, you do not simply let one thing pass. You provide data. You tell their nervous system, not their conscious mind, their nervous system, that this action is safe here, that this is a space where that behavior is permitted. And human beings, by design, move toward what is permitted and away from what is not. This is not malice. In most cases, it is not even conscious. It is pattern recognition operating exactly as designed, reading your responses, your silences, your willingness to absorb, and drawing a map. The map says, this far is safe, and they walk exactly as far as the map allows. Every time. The question, the only question that matters, is who drew the map. Epictetus was born a slave, not metaphorically, not as a figure of speech. A slave, owned, controlled, with no legal claim to his own body, his own time, or his own future. His master, at one point, broke his leg deliberately to demonstrate ownership, to show Epictetus and everyone watching that his body was not his own. Epictetus reportedly looked at his master and said, calmly, before the break, you are going to break it. And after, did I not tell you? No rage, no breakdown, no collapse, because Epictetus had already understood something that his master, for all his legal power, never did. There is a boundary no external force can cross, unless you invite it through. The boundary of your own judgment, your own response, your own interior. He called it the dichotomy of control, the absolute distinction between what is within your power and what is not. Your body, not fully yours. Your reputation, not fully yours. What others think, say, take, or do, not yours at all. Your judgment, your response, your standards, entirely and only yours. And here is the part most men miss entirely. When they read Epictetus, he was not teaching acceptance of mistreatment. He was teaching that the only boundary, with permanent structural integrity, the only one that cannot be broken without your permission, is the one you build inside yourself first. External boundaries, the ones you declare to other people, collapse without that foundation. Because if you do not believe, at the root level, that you are worth defending, no words you say to someone else will hold. They will find the gap, because the gap is in you, not in them. So why do men with intelligence, awareness, and enough pain to know this pattern is costing them? Why do they keep letting it happen? 3 reasons, and they run deep. The first, the boundary was never set because the cost of setting it felt higher than the cost of not having it. This is the calculation most men make, without ever making it consciously. Setting a boundary has an immediate cost: conflict, discomfort, the risk of losing the relationship, the risk of being seen as difficult. Not setting a boundary has a delayed cost: resentment, exhaustion, a slow erosion of self-respect that builds so gradually. You don't notice it until you can't remember what it felt like to not carry it. The immediate cost feels more real. So men choose the delayed cost every time, until the delayed cost becomes the only thing they are carrying. Epictetus had a word for this kind of short-term calculation. He called it failure to distinguish between what is uncomfortable and what is harmful. Discomfort is immediate. Harm is cumulative. The boundary conversation feels uncomfortable. The life without the boundary is what actually harms you. Most men are optimizing to avoid discomfort, while walking directly into harm. The second, many men have confused being needed with being valued. When someone depends on you, even through behavior that costs you, it registers somewhere beneath the resentment as proof of your importance. They need me. They come to me. Without me, things fall apart. This is not value. This is utility. And the distinction matters. Because utility can be replaced. Value cannot. The person who treats you as utility is not measuring your worth. They are measuring your availability. And as long as you remain available, for every demand, every crisis, every extraction, you are training them, daily, to see you as a resource rather than a person. Epictetus taught that the man who is afraid to be useless to others has not yet found his use to himself. I want you to think about a specific person, the one who takes the most, the one whose name appeared in your mind in the first 30 seconds of this video. Now, when did it start? Not the moment you noticed it. The moment it started. Was there a point, early in that relationship, where something happened and you let it go? Where you moved the line, or didn't draw one, or absorbed something you should have responded to? Most people, when they trace it back honestly, find that moment. It's usually small. That's the point. It was small enough to forgive easily, small enough to not be worth the conflict. And that smallness is exactly why it worked. Because the pattern wasn't built in one large violation. It was built in 10 small permissions. 20, 50, each one individually forgivable. Collectively, your current life. The question is not whether you should have responded then. It's whether you will respond now. The third, and the one that requires the most honesty. Some men do not set boundaries because they do not believe, at the foundation, that their time, energy, and peace are worth protecting. Not consciously. Ask any man in this situation directly, and he will say of course they are. But watch his behavior. Watch how quickly he abandons his own plans. When someone else presents a need, watch how fast his own priorities dissolve in the presence of someone else's urgency. Watch how long he waits, and waits, and waits, for a reciprocity that does not come, and then excuses the absence of it. Epictetus did not spend time arguing with men about whether they were worth protecting. He simply asked, if you will not protect your own interior, your own time, your own judgment, your own peace, on what grounds do you expect anyone else to? Here is what the boundary actually looks like in practice. Not the therapy version, the Stoic version. Step 1. Name the extraction. Before you can set a boundary, you have to be honest about where the extraction is happening. This requires more honesty than most men are initially comfortable with. Because naming it means you can no longer pretend it isn't happening. And pretending it isn't happening has been the more comfortable position. Write down the name of the person. Write down specifically what they take. Time, energy, money, peace, emotional bandwidth. Not a vague, they drain me. Specific. They call me at 11 p.m. with problems that aren't emergencies. And I answer because I don't know how not to. Specific is what makes it actionable. Vague keeps you stuck in resentment without movement. Step 2. Define the line before the next conversation. The boundary has to be decided in advance, not in the moment. Because in the moment, when the trigger is active, when the emotional pull is live, your pre-decided line is the only thing that holds. In the moment, you will negotiate. You always negotiate in the moment. That is exactly why Epictetus taught you to decide beforehand. What is the specific behavior you will no longer accept? What is the specific action you will take if it continues? Not a feeling, a decision. Not, I'm going to try to be better at this. A line, with a consequence you are actually prepared to follow through on. Because a boundary with no consequence is not a boundary. It is a preference. And people who take from you have already learned to ignore your preferences. Step 3. Hold the first test. The first time you hold the line, there will be a test. This is not a coincidence. It is how every established pattern responds to disruption. The test will be emotional. It may come as guilt. It may come as anger from the other person. It may come as a sudden crisis that appears designed to pull you back across the line you just drew. Hold it anyway. Not because the other person is bad. Not out of coldness or punishment. Because Epictetus understood that the only boundary that actually protects you is the one that has been tested and held. An untested boundary is just an intention. The first time you hold it, under pressure, under guilt, under the pull of the old pattern, that is the moment it becomes real. That is the moment the map changes. You came into this video thinking about someone who takes from you, and somewhere in the last 10 minutes, the discomfort may have shifted direction. Because the hardest part of this lesson, the part Epictetus does not let you escape, is that the map was drawn by your responses, not your intentions, not your values, not who you know yourself to be on the inside, your responses. And the same truth that makes that uncomfortable is the truth that makes it fixable. Because if the map was built by your responses, it can be redrawn by them. Not by one conversation, not by one declaration, not by telling someone where the line is, by holding it, every time, until the map reflects who you have decided to be. Epictetus was a man who owned nothing. Not his body, not his future, not his freedom. And he became the most internally unowned man in Rome, because he understood that the only boundary that matters permanently is the one inside you, the one that says, this far, no further, regardless of the cost. Not because it's comfortable, because it's true. If this series is doing what it's supposed to do, subscribe. Episode 4 is next. Marcus Aurelius. Reaction. Not about staying calm, about understanding that the moment you react, you've already lost, and they knew it before you did.